The bell above the door jingled as Mia tucked her notepad into her apron, forcing herself into the rhythm of another long shift at Rosie's diner. The smell of grease and brewed coffee clung to the air, and the old jukebox in the corner hummed with faint, forgotten tunes. She was halfway through refilling sugar containers when a familiar voice pierced her concentration. Her stomach dropped. At table 6, unmistakably, sat her ex-boyfriend Jason. Smirking, relaxed, arm draped around a pretty brunette in a red dress who giggled like she'd known him forever. Mia stood frozen, her heart thudding against her ribs. It had only been 8 months since he'd walked out of her life without warning. And here he was, brazenly back, pretending like the wreckage he left didn't matter. She straightened her shoulders and walked over, her smile tight. "Welcome to Rosie's," she said mechanically. Jason glanced up, eyebrows lifting in mock surprise. "Hey, Mia. Didn't know you still worked here." The woman didn't look up. 2 cheeseburgers and a side of charm, he added with a wink. Mia jotted the order with a clenched jaw, nodded, and turned on her heel before her composure cracked. In the kitchen, she leaned against the fridge, letting the cold steel cool her burning face. Why did it still hurt so much? As she fought back the wave of bitterness, a soft voice broke her trance. "Excuse me," came a tiny voice from the floor. Mia looked down to see a little girl, maybe 5, holding a crayon and smiling shyly. She had bright brown eyes and a mess of curls barely contained by pigtails. "My daddy's table wants pancakes." Mia followed the girl to table 4, where a man in his 30s sat. Tousled hair, tired eyes, worn flannel shirt. He looked up and offered a kind, if wary, smile. "Sorry about the messenger." She gets impatient. His voice was gentle, grounding. "Pancakes for her, coffee for me." Mia nodded and took their order, her heart still bruised but softening slightly. When she returned with their food 10 minutes later, the man thanked her warmly, and the little girl grinned wide. It was the first genuine smile Maya had seen all day. As she cleared the table later, she noticed something folded next to a few dollar bills. A napkin. She opened it curiously. Inside, sketched in black pen, was a small heart, shaded carefully with an artist's hand. Below it, in simple script, were the words, "You deserve better." She blinked, staring at the message like it had physically touched her. For the first time all night, the heat in her chest wasn't from pain, but from something quieter, more hopeful. She glanced toward the door, but the man and his daughter were already gone. Only table 4 remained, empty, but strangely full of promise. Maya folded the napkin and slipped it into her apron, her fingers lingering over the drawing. Maybe the night hadn't been so awful after all. The following evening, Maya entered Rosie's diner with a strange flutter in her chest, a mix of nerves and curiosity that clung to her like the aroma of frying bacon in the kitchen. Her shift started like any other coffee orders, ketchup refills, the usual complaints from the grumpy couple at booth 2. She told herself not to expect anything, not to scan the room for him. But when the bell above the door chimed and she looked up on instinct, there he was. Table 4, again. The little girl skipped to the booth like she owned the place, her curls bouncing as she waved. "Hi again," she chirped. Maya couldn't help but smile. "You brought your appetite?" she asked. The girl giggled and nodded. Her father looked up from unbuttoning his jacket and offered that same quiet smile. "We're back by popular demand," he said, gesturing to his daughter, who had already begun coloring the kids' menu. "She begged me all day to come here again." Mia chuckled, brushing a strand of hair behind her ear. "Grilled cheese and chocolate milk," she guessed. "You remembered," he said, pleasantly surprised. "And coffee for you," she asked. "Yeah, and maybe conversation if you've got time." His voice was gentle, inviting but not intrusive. Mia blushed slightly, catching herself off guard. She scribbled down the order, nodding. "I'll see what I can do." Back in the kitchen, she leaned against the counter, heart fluttering. Something about this man, Jake. She finally remembered from the receipt. Had a calm presence that tugged her away from the pain she'd carried for months. She returned with their food and lingered a few seconds longer than usual, asking the girl about her drawing. "It's you," the child said, matter of Fackley, holding up a stick-figure waitress with wild brown hair and a giant smile. Jake laughed softly, embarrassed. "She's very literal." "She's talented," Mia said. She hesitated a moment. "You're an artist too, aren't you?" He looked at her, surprised. "Yeah, freelance illustrations and some design work when it comes in." "How'd you guess?" "The heart," she replied, her voice quieter. "On the napkin." Jake's eyes softened. "You looked at it." "I kept it," she said before she could stop herself. He looked down, shy again. "I just wanted you to know someone saw you that night." Mia didn't know what to say. No one had said something that kind to her in a long time. Not without expecting something in return. Their conversation stayed light, drifting between work, art, and how his daughter wanted to be a rainbow doctor someday. When Jake got up to pay, he placed the bill gently on the table. "Maybe next time, you can let me draw you something better," he said. "Or maybe you'll draw something for me." Maya felt her breath catch, her heart thudding. She watched him leave again, this time not with sadness, but anticipation. That night, for the first time in years, she pulled out her old sketch pad. The weeks that followed seemed to breathe new life into Mia's world. Each time the bell jingled, and she saw Jake and his daughter slide into table 4, her heart lifted. It became a quiet rhythm. She served them grilled cheese and pancakes. They left napkin doodles and kind notes, and slowly, their smiles began to stitch up the wounds she thought would never heal. Jake never rushed their conversations. Sometimes they talked about dreams and memories, sometimes just the weather or cartoons. But it was the consistency, his warm eyes, his daughter's laughter, the way he always asked how her day was, that began to anchor Mia in something steady. One chilly afternoon, during a rare midweek lunch break, Jake came in alone, bundled in a navy hoodie and looking a little more tired than usual. Maya raised a brow as she poured his coffee. "No sidekick today," he smiled, rubbing his eyes. "School field trip. I almost didn't know what to do with myself. So I thought I'd see if you were still making the world's best pancakes." "Flattery will get you extra syrup," she said, grinning. As she returned with his food, Jake slid a small wrapped package across the table. "It's nothing big," he said quickly, almost nervously. "Just something I thought you might like." Mia blinked, surprised. "For me?" She untied the string and opened the brown paper to find a beautiful leather sketchbook, hand-bound, the cover etched with delicate floral designs. Inside, the first page was blank, except for one note written in careful print. For the artist who forgot how to draw for herself. Mia's hand trembled slightly as she traced the page with her fingers. Her eyes welled up. No one had given her something so personal in years. "Jaka, this is beautiful. I don't know what to say." "You don't have to," he said softly. "I just see how you light up when you talk about art. Thought maybe it was time someone reminded you that you still can." That night, after her shift ended, and the diner lights dimmed, Mia sat in the break room with the sketchbook on her lap and a pencil in hand. She stared at the blank page for a long time, afraid of what it might reveal. But eventually her fingers moved, slow, unsure lines forming into shapes, then faces, then emotion. Hours passed unnoticed. When she finally looked at the finished page, it was a sketch of a little girl smiling wide at a waitress with tired eyes and a full heart. The resemblance wasn't perfect, but the feeling was. It was joy. The next day, when Jake and his daughter returned to table 4, Maya placed their meals on the table and quietly slid the sketchbook toward him, open to the drawing. "Your turn to keep something," she whispered. His eyes met hers, full of something unspoken but deeply felt. In that moment, everything changed. Not just for Mia, but for all the chapters still waiting to be written. The seasons shifted, and so did Mia's life. Spring sunlight streamed through the tall front windows of Rosie's diner, casting golden rays across the checkered floor, where she had once stood heartbroken. Now, she stood with quiet strength, her apron tucked neatly, her notepad in hand. But everything inside her had changed. The sketchbook Jake had given her was nearly full now, not just with drawings of customers or food plates, but with images of healing, a woman looking into a mirror and smiling, A little girl chasing butterflies, a heart slowly stitching itself back together. Jake and his daughter still came to table 4 regularly, and their presence had become more than familiar. It had become essential. Their laughter blended with the clinking of dishes, and every shared smile carried weight. She no longer looked toward the door with dread, or over her shoulder expecting ghosts, even when Jason walked in. Yes, he still came sometimes, though less often. She served him with composure. No more bitterness, no flinching. One afternoon, he came in alone, sat at the counter, and gave her a strange look. "You seem different," he said, almost disbelieving. "Happier." Mia smiled, pouring his coffee without missing a beat. "That's because I am." He said nothing after that, and she realized he wasn't part of her story anymore. The real story was unfolding just a few steps away. That evening, Jake arrived with his daughter carrying a bouquet of wildflowers and a giant hand-drawn card. "Happy almost birthday?" the girl squealed, handing Mia the bundle. "It's tomorrow, but we wanted to beat the crowd." Mia laughed and hugged her. Jake stepped closer, a softness in his eyes. "She insisted," he said. I supported the mission. They sat down as usual, but there was a quiet energy in the air, as if something was waiting. After dinner, as Mia cleared their plates, Jake stood and offered her a folded napkin. "You remember the first heart I drew?" he asked. She nodded, her heart thudding. "This time, I want you to draw the last one." He pulled out a pen, handed it to her, and gently took her hand, guiding her back to table 4. There, he slid the napkin between them. Mia looked at him, then down at the blank space and slowly began to draw, not just a heart, but 2 figures holding hands beneath a tree. She shaded the scene carefully, tears stinging her eyes. When she finished, Jake leaned forward and whispered, "I think this table was meant to bring us together." Mia smiled through her tears. "I think so too." As his daughter clapped and asked if they could get ice cream to celebrate the love picture, Mia laughed and nodded. That night, as they walked out of the diner hand in hand, she looked back at table 4. Once a place of silent pain, now a symbol of hope, healing, and the unexpected beauty of new beginnings.